Welcome to the Memories of a Moonbird podcast, exploring life one story at a time. Hello friends, I'm Daniel Scherl. Today on the show, for more than 10 years as a first responder, she's helped save people's lives and been on the front lines of healthcare as a paramedic in Munich, Germany. Born and raised in Germany, she also grew up in the country that only 80 years ago was at the center of World War II. Today, we're going to talk about what it's like to see human beings in some of their most fragile moments, as well as delve a little into what it's like growing up in the shadows of war and the Holocaust. Please welcome my friend Sabine Einicke. Sabine, welcome to the show.
Hello, guten Tag.
How are you?
Oh, good. How are you?
I'm good. The first thing I think we need to get out of the way, just an important distinction to tell our listeners, is that as a German citizen, talking about some of these more difficult subjects at some point in the podcast today, it's very important that people know you are one person in a country here to talk about your experiences and your opinions. You don't speak for the entire country of Germany, just like I wouldn't ask an American to speak for all of America. And I want people to understand that, because when you talk about sensitive subjects, people can get a little prickly. So, that said, what was it like growing up in Germany?
Actually, not bad. I had a good childhood and we have a good health system. It's nice. Right now, it's a nice country to live in.
You were born and raised in Erfurt, right?
Yes, in Erfurt.
Do you have any distinct memories growing up there as a child? Something in particular that stands out?
It was East Germany. For all the people who probably don't know where Erfurt is, it's in East Germany. That is now not East Germany anymore, but we probably grew up more with the values and the history of it than being here now in Munich, that is West Germany. So coming here to Munich or even to Bavaria in general, a lot of people making fun of us. And I feel like we're the kind of people, like we take care of each other more because in East Germany with the communism, we didn't really get a lot of stuff. So it was more like one helping another with certain stuff. So I help you with certain stuff. And the people grew together a bit more than in West Germany. And it was not just anybody for themselves.
So like a much tighter community.
Yes. And I feel like that's a bit worse here. Like, for example, I'm going to a store. And in Erfurt, every time I go back to my home city, they're really nice. I mean, they're like, hello, how are you? Like more like the American way, I guess. So like, how are you? Have a good day. And here it's more like, hello, do you need help? Bye. So they don't wish a good day or anything. So this is really like stuck out for me that there's a difference.
Well, I'm curious, what did you want to be when you were a little girl?
When I was a little girl, I had a lot of Barbies and I wanted to be a hairdresser so bad. Like I cut the hair of my Barbies and stuff.
Now in Germany, do they have like little SS Barbie?
Not yet. Let's wait and see.
What's something about you that is still very distinctly German? Like if you travel the world, I know you've been to America and stuff, but what's something about you that's very German?
Probably being punctual. I hate when people are late, and I like certain things to be in order. I don't know. For example, Sundays here in Germany, like the stores are closed and we don't do anything, like no big projects. We would not be very noisy and stuff like that. And I hate when people are noisy on Sundays. So probably when I'm somewhere else, I would be the same way.
What's a story about you that your parents would tell?
Probably how I always wanted stuff my brother had. I was a really annoying little sister, and my parents keep telling me stories where my brother had stuff and I just wanted it because my brother had it.
Well, when did you become interested in medicine and being a paramedic?
Well, how I said before, my parents are both doctors. And so topics at my home and at the dinner table always were about medical stuff. And that was very interesting for me as a kid. And then I was like, no, I don't want to work that much as my parents and stuff like that. But I didn't know what else to do. And it was the only field I was really interested in. So I started working as a paramedic to get into medical school later.
And how many hours do you typically work on a shift?
That depends on where you work. Right now I'm in the I work in the inner city of Munich, and it's pretty tough because we work a lot. So we only have 8-hour shifts at a time, but we do not have a break in between. So we just work the 8 hours and then we're done. But in my old hometown, I worked between 8 and 24-hour shifts.
But there were breaks.
No. Well, you take the breaks when they come. Like if you don't have a call right now, you try to eat something. If there's a call in between, well, you have to leave your food there and just jump into the car in the ambulance and just go. So you do not have like scheduled breaks.
So what's a typical shift for you now working in the inner city of Munich? What's a typical shift like?
Well, I come to work like a half hour before I start to get the ambulance from the shift before. And so we're doing a little consultation. So what's missing? What do we have to get? Stuff like that. And then we wait till our first call comes. Most of the times it just comes like 10 minutes before my shift starts. And then I'm in the ambulance, and most of the times I'm not getting into department again before my shift's over.
So basically, once you get that first call, you're out and you don't come back till the end of the 8 hours?
Yes, most of the time it's like that because there's just so much to do.
On an average shift working in an ambulance, what are the kinds of things that you see in general more often than not?
If it's not COVID times, probably drunken people, like intoxicated people in any way, like alcohol, drugs, stuff like that. That's probably the most common thing in the inner city shifts. But other than that, like, what I said, I mean, heart attacks, trouble breathing, stuff like that, and a lot of broken bones. People are clumsy, I'm telling you.
Would you say clumsiness is the most common thing you see, or would that be drunkenness? What's the number one, do you think?
Sadly, intoxication. Yeah. A lot of time it's homeless people being too drunk to get up, and people call because they cannot wake them up. So we come and try to wake them up, and then if they cannot get up by themselves, we take them to the hospital. Or yes, like Friday night, Saturday night, like the weekends, it's mostly party goers and bars that call us, or their spouses that cannot take care of them anymore. So they call us. And we try our best. It's really fun when I have underage drinkers or like with alcohol poisoning, because then I can call their parents and they get really mad. And it's kind of, I don't know, it's kind of my guilty pleasure. Because most of the times they're not that drunk that they have to go to the hospital, but they have to have someone that is looking out for them and like, takes care of them over the night so they don't die from their vomit. But that's fun. Like, it's so interesting to see how parents react to their drunken kids. You have some, they're like really cool and say, well, we did the same thing when we were younger. And then you have like the parents that are like so mad and like, wait till you come home. And it's like the funnest part. Because most of the times they're like really mean to us. They don't want our help, like when you're drunk, you just want to be alone. I'm the same way, but we are there now. And so most of the times they're just mean and like, I don't call us names and being a bit bitchy.
What percentage of your stuff is, you said the majority is drunken people or minor things, falls and stuff. How many very serious and intense life-threatening things do you think you see?
I would say 20%. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Do you find it easy to remain calm during a traumatic situation?
Yes.
And why do you think that is?
I have no idea. I'm not the calmest person in my personal life. Don't ask my boyfriend. I get annoyed so easily and so frustrated very easily and nervous about everything. But in my job, I'm the total opposite. I'm calm and I'm just like, when something happens, I'm not a very hectic person then. I don't know why that is. I love to take charge when I'm working. So,
well, I'm actually curious, if you don't mind me asking, what's one of the worst things you've ever seen or had to deal with as a paramedic?
Well, probably people would think it would be like car accidents or like, I don't know, like really serious trauma. But for me, it's a social aspect of the job. Like, for example, we had a drunken woman that fell and hurt herself, and we got her to the hospital to treat her. and she was telling us that her husband hits her and they took her kids away and stuff like this. So got her to the hospital, and the police came so she could what's it called?
Give a statement.
Yeah, give a statement about her husband. But I don't know how it is in America, but in Germany you have to repeat that statement when you're sober. But most of the people just like take it back when they're sober because they're so afraid of their abuser, you know. And a couple weeks later, we got a call that a guy took a knife to his wife, and we went there, and the same woman was on her couch. The power was off because she couldn't pay for it, and she was like bleeding all over her face. He cut her face like really deep and like really big. And he was just like running away. The police got with him. And I saw all these pictures from her kids that the state took away from her. And that really got to me.
Yeah.
You know, like the social things are worse for me than the actual trauma.
Yeah, well, that makes sense. That's terrible.
I can deal with trauma because I don't know these people. And as soon as I know them on a level, it gets to me a lot more than when I see somebody laying on the street, even if that sounds awful.
So how do you not take some of this stuff home? How do you leave it at the proverbial office?
I have work friends and I have colleagues I talk to about that stuff. And I feel like, you know, sharing these kind of things with each other because they had similar stuff they went through. You don't take it with you to your home. So I feel like I can leave it there because I already talked about it. You know what I mean? And I have a really understanding boyfriend, but I really feel like these things, they get to me on another level. Like I think about it a lot in a couple weeks after that happened, but I don't feel it stresses me out or I don't feel like it kills me inside. So I can really put that away easily. So I feel like I'm good at my job because I can leave it at work and it's easy for me. Like I did not have to practice that.
Does death bother you?
No.
Why do you think?
Well, because what I said, when for example, I get a call and I go somewhere and there is a person who is in cardiac arrest and I have to do CPR. I don't know that person. The only thing I can do is help that person. Like he is already dead and everything I try is make it better and bring him back to life. And that's probably the thing I see. That's why, and I don't know him and this person, most of the times I don't even know their name till way after. So I feel like that's the kind of barrier that is between us.
How often do you have to deal with death?
Well, it's more common than you think because I don't know, like old people and stuff or suicidal people, you know, we have to, you know, for example, somebody calls us because they can't get into a apartment or a house because they didn't hear from that person for a long time, but they don't have a key, blah, blah, blah. So we go there and we just find bodies because they've been dead for a couple of weeks or stuff like that. We had that.
And doesn't that, not to be gory, but doesn't that smell and isn't that terrible?
Mm-hmm. It depends, but yeah, there were some really smelly bodies.
So I'm a bit squeamish and I'm talking to someone who deals with death and smell and blood and other bodily fluids and vomit and feces and all this stuff.
Okay, first of all, vomit is my kryptonite. This is like, I can see everything, but if somebody vomits in front of me, I'm doing the same thing. Like I get tears in my eyes and I feel like that it's coming up and I have to get out of the car because I cannot deal. Really, this is the worst thing for me. Vomit is like, I don't know. It's like for everybody else it's something, it's like more like feces, but for me, it's vomit.
No, I don't like vomit either. It's all gross, to be honest with you.
Oh my God. No. I had, for example, we had a case that somebody drank a whole bottle of red wine and then, well, he was really drunk and then he went outside, fell and crushed his head on the wall. And because of that, he had to vomit and he vomited the whole red wine out. And he was in our car and I look at my colleague tears in my eyes, and it's like, I am so sorry, but I have to get out of here. Otherwise, I'm doing the same thing that he does, and you have two patients. So I was so sorry. I had to leave him alone in there, but I had to get out of that ambulance.
But do you guys still have to, like, if someone pukes all over the ambulance,
we
do you still have to clean
it up?
this?
Yeah, but that's not. Yeah, that's worse. Well, it's not worse, but it's awful too, I guess. We had somebody fell into the river last year, and he was okay. So he was just drunk and fell into the river. And it was in December, so we had like this really thick coat on, and so the fire department got him out. We got him in our ambulance, and we had to cut everything off him, like the coat, and it was these goose feathers, coats, and everywhere in our ambulance they were like goose feathers, and like everything was soaking, and it was just like wet in like a whole river in there with goose feathers, and it took us 2 hours to clean out the whole ambulance, and he didn't even have anything. He was okay.
What a bastard.
Yeah.
What's your favorite part of your job?
My colleagues, because you have to be in an ambulance with somebody for like 8 hours minimum, so most of them are like fun, and we have like, well, if you have a colleague that's like really fun, you have a lot of fun. So, and I guess, I mean, it's cheesy, but taking care of people. I really like sitting down with people and talking, and I don't know, trying to understand what's wrong and helping them, and like try to get them a bit calmer than when they were before, and helping. What
do you think is actually the hardest thing for you to do as a paramedic?
Dealing with stupid people.
Well, that's just life.
No, but you know what? When you're a paramedic, it's extra. I mean, people are really extra. For example, they call you when they got a cut in their finger. They're calling 911 and want help. And then you come there and you're like, well, what's the problem? Well, I have a cut in my finger and I didn't know what to do. Like the stupidity. Like if you think about people went to wars and they survived however they did. And now people can't even take care of their finger. So it's
pathetic,
something
yeah.
That and I get so frustrated, and I'm at that point in my life where I can't deal with people like that. So I get really mad and I yell at them that, we are here for emergencies, and some other part of town, somebody's dying, and we are here because he cut his finger, and like, yeah.
But justifiably so. I would look at that person and go, hey, man, what the fuck's your problem? Like, people are actually having real problems, and a paper cut, learn how to be a human,
Yeah.
Which brings up an interesting thing, because really, you would think that basic first aid is something that every single citizen of every country should have to learn before they graduate high school, how to butterfly bandage something, how to do quick CPR. Like these are things should be mandatory to graduate, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And I don't know if they are in some places now, but when I was growing up, it wasn't. So
here they are. If you want to get your driver's license, you have to do a first aid course. It's like 2 days, but most of them did here, and they still can deal with simple stuff. It always depends on like what kind of human being it is. If it's like an old lady, I can deal with her because
it's a different story.
Yeah. And if they're like parents and something's with their kid, I can deal with them because I'm not a parent, but I believe them when they're just scared and stuff like that. So that's totally okay if they call with minor stuff. I don't care. But when you're in your 20s and your 30s and you call an ambulance because you got a paper cut, or I don't know, you fell and your knee's hurting a bit, but you can walk. I mean, just walk to the hospital by yourself. Why do you need us? Like, I'm just...
Yeah, no, citizens of the world, if you cut your finger or you sprain your ankle and you're not someone elderly or disabled who can't get there, just take yourself to the hospital. You don't need the ambulance service. Don't waste their time. They have bigger and more important things to do, right?
Well, probably it's different here in Germany because our health care system is so good. The ambulance is always free.
Oh, no, not here. It's between $2,000 and $5,000 for an ambulance ride unless your insurance covers it, and possibly more. But that's cool that it's free there.
Yeah, people know that here. So they don't want to pay a taxi to drive them to the hospital because they know it's free when you get an ambulance. And that's getting a bit out of hand.
All right, I have to know, Sabina, what's the weirdest or craziest thing that you've seen as a paramedic?
Well, we got a call and they were like, well, can you call us because we don't want everybody to know. So we called the department and we're like, well, what's wrong? I'm like, well, we have a special emergency for you guys. Somebody took their vibrator, anal, and stuck it so far up that they couldn't get it out. So we had to get them and bring them to the hospital. We didn't really do anything. I mean, what should I do? Put my fingers in there? No, probably not. But the X-ray was very interesting because you could see the batteries in it, That was a fun one. Yeah. And the funny thing is, we have a gurney and then we have a seat. And I was like, well, where do you want to be? And he couldn't sit because it was still vibrating. And it was, I guess, a little bit awful for him.
Wait, it was still buzzing like inside him?
And he could hear it. It was like, and you have to be serious and you can't laugh, but you want to laugh.
Oh my God.
This is like the weirdest feeling ever if you want to laugh at something, but you have to you have to be like very serious about stuff and you're like, oh my God, I'm so sorry that happened to you. Like,
wow.
Yeah.
I have a friend who tells a story about a guy who actually got a potato stuck in his butt.
Oh yeah. There's a series of X-rays that is the funniest thing ever, like bottles and light bulbs. Oh. I don't know. People stick everything in their ass. I'm telling you. That's probably the funniest thing I ever have seen.
People are just real crazy with their buttholes, man.
They are.
Well, hey, do you guys still use shock paddles like in the movies, or have you guys moved over to electrodes?
We have electrodes, like these sticky ones you put on.
Yeah.
So the reason is because with the hot paddles, you have to find the position every time you put them on. And if you have like the sticky ones, they stick to it and then you just leave them there. So it's easier. It's not as heroic, but it's better for the patient.
So now, why does a paramedic, back in the days when they would have those paddles and they would go clear, and then they'd slap the guy or the woman with the paddles, why do they yell clear? Is there a danger of electricity hitting you?
Mm-hmm. Oh, there's so many electricity going through the body that we yell clear even today. Even with the sticky electrodes, we have to clear. If you stay on them, you get a shock. You get an electric shock.
Have you been shocked?
No.
How do you don't say clear in German? What do you say?
Weg vom Patienten. So get away from the patient. That's what we say. Yeah.
What does it feel like to save someone's life?
Pretty good. It feels pretty good. You feel like you touched somebody's life and of course, in saving it, but you feel like you're part of his life now because you will remember. And it's really nice when they acknowledge that and write you a letter or something. It does not happen a lot, but it happens and it's really nice for you. And, with everything in my job that, I've drunk people and stupid people, it reminds you of why you do that. Why you put yourself through all these awful people because there's this one person who really needed your help and you kind of, I would say, saved it.
Has your life actually ever been in danger on the job?
Yeah, probably not like I would say you would think, like people here don't have guns and stuff like that, but they have knives. There were like 2 occasions where drunken people took out their knives and sprinted behind of us. So we just got in the ambulance, closed everything up, called the police. And then there was one guy who just did not want our help and just threw beer bottles at us and almost got my colleague. He just jumped right next to me so he would not get hit by it, but not that often. But the problem here, people get more aggressive every day against us. I don't know why, but they get annoyed a lot because we have how the ambulance look like. They're a bit smaller than the American ones, but they're still very big. And we have like small streets here in Germany. So if there's an emergency, I have to stay in the middle of the street because I can't like get into a parking space because I don't have that time. And people get annoyed with that if they cannot drive around you, if they cannot pass the street. And there were occasions where people just got slapped in the face because people thought it's their choice to do that and their right to do that.
Well, people can be really shitty about that kind of stuff until it's their wife that needs the ambulance or their mother that needs the ambulance.
Yeah. And when people talk back at me because of kind of that, they yell at me because I just closed down the street or stuff like that. I yell back, and then I try to provoke them. And what I want is that they yell at me so much that I can call the police. So they get in trouble. And so they see that their actions have consequences, but they normally don't do that.
Right. Makes sense. I'm curious, have you ever helped deliver a baby?
Twice. Yeah, I did.
Was that awesome?
Scary as hell. Yeah, I'm telling you. I mean, first time I did it, I was really new at the job, and I knew from a theoretical point what I was doing. But we came there and we just figured out that we're not going to the hospital because we could not make it in time. It was a fourth baby. And you know how it is. It's just like really fast. With the fourth baby, it's just like pops out. And so my colleague is like was a very good paramedic, and his mom was a
midwife.
Oh, a midwife. Yeah, she was a midwife. So he knew what he was doing. And I felt like I've been like, I went to the apartment. I was like, okay, we need hot water and towels. And that's just not anything you do. I was just like, oh my God, I don't know what I'm doing. But it was okay. The only problem was she was a druggie, and the baby got drugs in her system too. And the problem with these babies is they don't want to really breathe when they come out. So, you have to really push them to breathe and stuff like that. And there were no doctor nearby. And so we did that all on our own. So that was an exciting experience.
Wow, that's so cool.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk about genders for a minute. As a woman, you work in a fairly male-dominated field. Mm-hmm. And I'm curious if there's been inequality there, and if so, how is it different when you started to today?
Well, 10 years ago, it was more men-dominated than now. I feel like we have a lot of women now in that job, and that's kind of really cool because I feel like we bring a lot to the table and a lot to the job, especially with the psychological issues we deal with people. I feel like because we're a bit more emotional and stuff, we can deal with that kind of stuff a bit better. And because you have, victims with abusing and stuff, it's always better to have a woman at the scenery than a man. So that's kind of cool. But when I started in the job, we were 4 girls of, I think 50 employees. So that stuck out. And you have to get through a lot of comments, a lot of, sexual, not really harassments, but sexual tensions and jokes. You just have to laugh at, and you're not allowed to say anything because as soon as you say anything, you're a bitch. You know what I mean?
Now, is that still true today, or is that how it was before?
I feel like it got better. I still feel like if you say something as a woman, especially in my job, and a man would say the same thing, it always sounds a lot bitchier when a woman says, or like the room always tells me that it was not allowed that I said that. For example, we are all at the station and people are like really loud, or they smoking inside the station and they're not supposed to. And a man would say, hey, you guys, could you go outside and smoke there? Like really nice. People would just do it and just keep talking. If I say that as a woman, they was like, oh man, why do women always have to be like that?
And that still happens to this day.
Yeah, that really does. And I feel like you have to be a lot stronger at the job, because you have to prove more. You have to prove to people that you can carry them down the stairs and you can do all the work that men can. I mean, there are some body issues I have, and men are a bit stronger than me. That is just nature. But with the right techniques, I can do a lot that men can do. Even like my job is very hard on my body, and I do it and I don't complain, but I feel like I have to prove a lot more than men do. It's not that bad to do, but it was 10 years ago.
I was going to say, do you think it's better today, though?
It is a lot better because a lot of more women are in the job. So.
And do you think it'll eventually even out and actually be a peaceful, even thing?
I hope so. I don't. Yeah. I feel like we're getting there, but it will be some time till we are that equal. The issue with like body issue and like being strong and stuff will always be a problem. I feel like a lot of women will never be as strong as men because our body types are just not made for that kind of, physique. But so I think it always will be a bit of a problem and topic, but not as much as it was.
What advice would you give to someone who's interested in becoming a paramedic?
Do it if you want to, but you have to acknowledge that you can't do it forever. It is a job you do for like 10 years, and then you have to find a plan B in your life. Because of, your body will not work as good after 10 years because you have to, lift up people a lot. So your back is getting crushed at some point.
Well, and emotionally, it has to be after a while, you have to get sick of dealing with all the human soup and nonsense.
Yeah, that too. But I feel like if you have the right mindset, you can do it a lot longer, But the pay is not as good. The pay is probably, I don't know how it is in America, but here in Germany, we do not get paid very well. And so it's not a job you can do forever. And since, there is not a lot you can do with that degree. You're paramedic and there's not a lot coming after that. You're paramedic or you can be head of the department at some point, but there's just like one head of the department.
Well, I'm really curious, how has COVID changed what you do?
It got more quiet because people hear on the news how full the hospitals are. They don't call as much. That's so weird. I mean, we really don't do as much anymore than before COVID.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Now, you have to still be careful because of exposure.
Oh, we go there with full mask. If there's any signs of COVID, like, they have a cough or anything, or like a fever, even if it's not COVID, we have to wear everything, like the coat, the face shield, the glasses, and the mask, like the heavier mask. I don't know what they called in
the N95. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and I had to do CPR with that whole gear. That's tough, man. I was sweating so much. Never sweated so much in my life.
Well, you can't you don't ever do mouth to mouth as a paramedic. You use a little squishy ball thing, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, what's the most valuable thing that you think you've learned from being a paramedic overall?
To deal with people and be patient. I mean, I can't really say that in my personal life, but I feel like with other people, I can be very patient and listen till the end, just don't assume stuff. Because, for example, we get a call. It's not really a call. We have a little display in our car and there's the emergency written on it. And for example, it would say just intoxication or trouble with breathing. That's like, we don't really get a lot more on it. And a couple of times you just get into your car and you're like, oh my God, not again. Or, oh my God, that is so stupid. And then you get there and it's worse than you imagined. So I would say not assuming things and don't really...
not judging?
Yeah, thank you. Not judging people. That's like the biggest thing, because you tend to judge a lot when you like read certain names or stuff like that, or like certain parts of town. You feel like, oh, okay, that's nothing, or that's just stupid stuff again, and then it's not. So yeah, that's one thing.
So trying to treat each situation
Uh-huh.
as a new thing and not
Yes.
prejudge. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's just life. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I know you're transitioning away from being a paramedic now and you're going to become a teacher. Is that correct?
Yes, I do. A primary teacher.
And well, what made you want to transition from being a paramedic to a teacher?
So I wanted to be a paramedic because I wanted to go to medical school. And I did that. I went to medical school for a couple of years. And then I decided I don't want to be a doctor and I don't want to be in that field anymore. And then I've kind of got into a crisis, like a self-crisis. And I'm like, okay, what am I going to do with my life? So I went to being a paramedic full-time again for a year and just thought about, okay, what am I good at? And with like the new people coming in as being a paramedic, I love teaching them. I love showing how they want, like how they're going to be better and in their job. So I felt like, okay, being a teacher is kind of something I'm good at because I am patient in my job. So, and I love working with kids. So yeah, started it and I really love doing it right now.
Well, maybe we'll have you on the podcast in a few years to talk about what it's like to be a teacher.
I really want to stay a paramedic though. Like I want to do it beside my job because I really love doing it, but just not as much anymore as I'm doing it now.
Well, speaking of education, we're going to transition over to some interesting questions about history. I have some questions for you about the Holocaust and growing up in Germany. What was it like for you as a German growing up in the country that had committed these atrocities of the Holocaust? Mm-hmm. And are you educated about it as a child? Does it affect you as a citizen of the country? I'm so curious because we as Americans, we are taught it, but we don't live in the place where it all took place. Mm-hmm. And I'm gonna touch on that a little later as well, but I want you to talk first.
Yeah. So growing up, you find out very fast that you're not allowed to be like a nationalist, and you're not allowed to be proud of your country, and we're not. Like we would never. Well, there are some occasions we would show our flag, but we normally don't do that here. Like the German flag, we don't do that, and we don't say Germany is the best and Germany is like first number one country. We would never say stuff like that because of our history, because of how we got educated with it. We still have, the trauma is still so much in us that even like 2 generations down the line, we would never feel that pride of a country that, for example, Americans, like not all, but a lot of Americans do.
Well, how long do you think it's going to be until Germany can do that, till at an Olympic event, they can be proud of having achieved something at the Olympics, or they can, Germany has many incredible technological achievements. Yeah. Like how long of a period of time before they can do that?
Well, it totally depends. If there's a new, like how you said with the COVID thing, it's kind of funny because BioNTech is a German company, but they don't talk about it because they got involved with Pfizer. And, when you talk about the vaccine, I feel like they only say Pfizer.
And Moderna.
Okay. But what they do here, they say BioNTech because they're the ones that actually got the whole thing. They developed the whole vaccine, and it's a German it's a German company.
Interesting.
But you don't know that because you don't talk about it. But I'm proud of that. I am proud that it's a German company.
Yeah.
I get proud that people are from Germany, but I'm just not like how Americans would do and like be like, oh, we're the greatest country. So
and wearing T-shirts of your flag and all that stuff.
Yeah. But for example, with like we take soccer very seriously. Not me, for example, but like our country. Like soccer is the number one sport here. So with soccer championships and world championships, people get their flags out. That's the only event we would do that. That's really the only one. So people forget everything around them because we got soccer champions, and then the flag coming out.
And as children, I assume you're educated about the war and the Holocaust, right?
Yes, we are. We have it a lot in school. I think like the whole 11th and 12th grade, I feel like the only thing we talked about was World War II and Holocaust. I wouldn't say everybody here is educated because we have like a weird school system. There's like after primary school, they're like three different ways you can take. You can get your degree after 9th grade, after 10th grade, or after 12th grade. When you get your degree after 12th grade, you can go to college. When you do like 9th or 10th grade, you only can do like certain jobs.
Trades.
Yeah. So people who go to these kind of schools, because they have not 12 years of school, I feel like it got cut down a lot. So I feel like these people may not as educated if they don't do it by themselves. Not all of us are educated, but a lot of us are very educated.
And are you guys taken on field trips to the concentration camps and things like that?
Yes, we do, but I don't really know. I went to the concentration camp near Munich last year, and there were like a lot of 14-year-old students there with their class, but I don't know how good that is to do that with 14, because when you're 14, it's just you don't feel the trauma, and you don't feel like how awful that is. I feel like a lot of kids don't really can deal with all that stuff. They just think, oh, okay, we're doing a field trip, blah blah blah, it's nothing, and just like laughing at the site and stuff like that. So I feel like it's a bit early to go to.
Well, it depends on the kid too. I mean, there were certain field trips we took as kids in America that really got to me as a kid. Like when you see the evidence of slavery in America and things like that, it's very profound. For me, it was very profound. There were other kids laughing and stuff, so I know what you mean. But I think it depends on the child.
Of course, but it's always the same thing. If people have to do stuff and don't do it because they want to, it's always like hard to get them interested into it. And I feel like World War II and the Holocaust is one of that topic. You have to be interested in it, and you have to want to listen about it and learn about it. And I feel like with 14, your interests are just a bit shifted and somewhere else than dealing with all that stuff. So
something interesting you and I haven't had a chance to talk about yet. And for the listeners, Jolene and I were actually in Germany for 3 weeks at the end of 2018, and we got to hang out with Sabine and her family, and we had a wonderful, wonderful time. And it's a beautiful, beautiful country with a people rich in culture and good food, and there was a lot of love there, which was really wonderful for me. But we did go to Dachau, and we walked around the concentration camp, and to say it was a life-changing experience for me as a Jew is an understatement. But the thing that struck me the most, and I didn't ever get a chance to tell you this, is that there were times I'd be walking around some of the cities, and I would look over and see an old building that was obviously from that era, or I'd see like really old train tracks. And all I could think about was, oh, well, that's where my people were bused or trained to their death. And this is where this organization, this is the SS headquarters, or this is the whatever. And there was one day we were walking around just looking at stuff, and I remember being struck with this feeling of, oh man, I'm like behind enemy lines right now. And it's such a strange feeling because the war was so long ago, and I wasn't there, and it's like you said, it's 2 generations moved on, and I still don't know what to do with those feelings. And I think talking about it is important because, like I said, when we were there, we had such a fantastic time, and we were given so much love and tenderness by you guys and all of our friends. And it's important, I think, for the world to know that, in my opinion, and I'm sure there are, just like there's neo-Nazis in America and stuff, I'm sure there are small groups of people in Germany that still hate the Jews and would hate blacks and hate whatever. But the general feeling I had walking around Germany was, this is a country filled of people that just want to have a lot of fun with you and share a drink and have good food and laugh and joke. And Germans are honestly some of the funniest people on the planet. And I had such a magnificent time. And I think people should know that, to me, that's the Germany of today. And I think it's an important thing that people need to realize.
Man, I really get teared up when you say stuff like that, because for us it's so weird. We cannot talk like this with our history. Like, I feel so bad with everything that happened. It didn't even, I wasn't even living back then, but I feel so awful and everything that happened, and I don't understand because like everywhere, like, like right-wing parties are rising again. Here in Germany, same thing. Like 25% of the population voted for the right-wing party here. And it's not been even 100 years since that happened. I cannot understand how people can do that. How you cannot think about everything that happened and just feel like, okay, we just don't want anybody else here in our country, and we want to live our traditions, blah blah blah. And this is so hard for me to hear, and I don't know.
Well, yeah, I mean, look at America. We just had people, like assault our try to seize the Capitol building, the seat of our government. It's like, it's crazy that there's that many people that feel so disenfranchised and angry. And, and I do think that regardless of where you stand politically in the world, at least in America, I think the one thing above all that Trump did that was so horrible is that he actually took advantage of people's anger and our most base level instincts. And he milked it, and I think that's what Hitler did too, honestly.
And it's the same thing the right-wing party here does now. That's why they're rising up, because a lot of people are angry, and that's okay. It's okay to be angry, and it's okay to not feel like the system is, has your back, and you kind of feel like you're falling out of the system. But we don't talk about it. We just get mad, and then we just want change, and we don't care who, we roll over. You know what I mean?
Well, how do you think we do change that around the world? Because it's not just Germany. It's not just your right-wing party. There's in most countries.
Yeah. The problem is that our countries are getting divided so much. We only have like left-wing and right-wing anymore. I feel like there's no middle, and we are in our bubbles. We don't want to talk to each other because we don't understand why the other one is thinking like this. And with, the internet and fake news and everything, you can't really prove anything anymore, I feel like, because nobody wants to hear the truth, because they don't believe it's the truth, because they have their websites and they think that's the truth. And I feel like we have to talk more to each other and be tolerant about stuff we're angry about. I mean, everybody's entitled to their opinion. We do not have to understand everything they say, but I feel like we have to, move forward and just try to. I mean, I'm the same way. I don't have friends who think like that, and I don't feel like I want to have friends who think like that. And I want to say, I want to say my little bubble, but I feel like we have to talk to each other so we can get past that. But right now, I don't know. It's just, they know what to say. They know how to get them more angry at stuff. And as long as fake news are out there, I feel like it's getting worse.
Do you think there's any danger of what happened in Germany so long ago happening again in the world?
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I mean, there were other countries who slaughtered people in.
Oh yeah, I mean that's not a new thing. That's still happening now. And
yeah, exactly. I feel like that can happen anytime again. So.
Well, you mentioned 25%. If someone like Hitler had risen to power in Germany today, what percentage of your population do you think would support him?
Well, probably. Well, the good thing is with everything that we know today, probably that 25%. I hope it's just 25%.
I hope it's less.
Yeah, well, I know the data right now, so I know it's 25%, but I hope less too. But being honest, I feel like it could happen. But so we just have to educate everybody and like be educated. Yeah. Stuff like this does not happen anymore.
Do you believe that I, as a Jewish man, if I wanted to move to Germany tomorrow, I could move there happily and be totally safe and be fine?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, there have been a couple traumatic events in a couple years that happened here to synagogue. What's the English word for
a synagogue?
Yeah. So there were 3 events that happened that were awful, but I feel like in general, you're pretty safe here.
Well, we've had that in America, so it's not.
I think you would be safer here than in America, so that's for sure.
Yeah, well, we have a lot of guns here, and you don't. So.
I mean, yeah.
So I read online that in Germany today, it's illegal to display swastikas and SS SIG runes or sell any goods that sport those symbols, and that even the Nazi salute and statements like Heil Hitler are also banned in public. My understanding is that if you do so, it's punishable by a fine or up to 3 years in prison under German criminal code. And then in addition, any incitement of hatred against people of a certain race or religion can also be punished with up to 5 years in jail. This includes denying the Holocaust. Is that true? And do people respect it if it is?
Yes, it is true. You're not allowed to show the sign anywhere or do the hand gesture. And the thing with the hatred is, yes, it is true. You're not allowed to say those opinions in public, but it's very hard to.
You can't police what people do in their home, essentially.
That's not what I mean. It's just like a lot, like a long process to get them behind bars just for saying their opinion. So it's a fine line, you know. There are some people who are monitored right now because they said some stuff because of, you know, starting with the whole COVID stuff, and then it got a bit into the whole racist stuff and denying Holocaust. So they're getting monitored, but they're not in jail, and they did say some awful stuff. So it's hard here in Germany to behind bars.
In America, we still have people in the South generally that fly the Confederate flag. And do people in Germany still fly a swastika flag anyway?
Well, in their homes, they do. I had being like, you know, coming back to being a paramedic, we had a case that, you know, there was like loud music and the girlfriend couldn't get a hold of him. So we went there to, you know, push open the door and find him. He committed suicide to himself, but everywhere in his apartment there were swastikas on the walls. He had a big swastika tattoo on his chest, and that was weird. The first time I have seen that ever, and never seen it again here. So you can do in your home whatever you want. I don't know how it is when the police is coming and sees that. I don't know how they would charge, if they would charge him. But you're not allowed to do it in public, and nobody does it in public. Nobody. They would probably more like just put the national flag on their bag and tell people like that they're a nationalist, but not the swastika.
Well, Sabine, you personally, as a German citizen, a young person in the world, how old are you, by the way? I forget, 30?
Always and forever 29.
Okay, well, always and forever 29-year-old Sabine Einicke. As a German woman, what would you say if you could address all the Jewish people of the world? What would you say to them, except for maybe, we love your bagels?
Okay, first of all, we don't know your bagels because we don't have them here. So I don't know. Maybe I want to try them. But man, I have to be serious about that, because I would just say I'm sorry. And I hope that will never happen again, and that I feel awful being a German, because I do. I don't really think like I would say something funny, because it's not a funny topic.
No, it's not. But the fact is, and we do need to say this, that throughout history, human beings have used humor as a coping mechanism, and it is one of the most wonderful ways to express what we're feeling and to get through some of the darker and more horrible times, you know?
That's true.
Important.
But you have to acknowledge that there are not a lot of Jews in Germany anymore. So I've never met one besides you, you know, or that at least told me that they're Jewish. So, and not very common. And the stores are not really owned by Jews here anymore. So you don't really see any department store or anything that belongs to a Jew. So we don't really live with this right now. I feel like in America it's such a big topic and such a big thing, and here it's not. Because
it's interesting. I don't know a lot of Jewish people that would be, you know, chomping at the bit to go open up a business in Germany, I guess.
Yeah.
But it would be fascinating to get in a time machine and see what that's all going to be like, you know, in a couple 100 years. See how much it's changed.
Yeah, that's why I said to my boyfriend to Christian, we were talking about it, and I was like, man, I wonder how our society would be if all that would not have happened, because like a lot of stores were owned by Jews here, and like most of the department stores, and like it was so openly here, and I wonder how our society would be.
Yeah.
Be different.
I do too, actually, because I think my family was all Eastern European, so you and I could have ended up neighbors.
Yeah. But we found each other anyway, so.
Yeah, we found each other. How great is life? And I will say the reason Sabine is actually so cool is that when we were visiting Germany, she made this special trek over to our place just to bring us these really wonderful German chocolates, and I will never forget that. It was awesome. Well, what was it like for you to have a bunch of Americans hanging out with you and your boyfriend and your family for a week? Are there any like American perspectives or expressions that you remember as being funny or weird?
So I'm probably not the best person to ask that because I lived in the US for a year. So I'm used to expressions and everything, and I'm used to the weird sense of humor of Americans. No, I'm just kidding. But it was cool. It was such a cool Christmas. Like we still talk about it because our Christmas is normally so boring because it's just now a lot of people hanging out at our house. Just my parents, my brother, that's it. And well, his girlfriend, my boyfriend. And it was just such a cool experience just to have a change and have like really nice people over, like friends.
It was honestly one of the best holiday experiences either of us have ever had. And I want to give a big shout out to all of your parents for hosting us and cooking and just being so wonderful. And also, I do want to say to the listeners of the podcast, if you get a chance, go to Germany, especially at Christmas, the Christmas markets, the food, it's really fantastic and such a great time. So go enjoy. I have a fun question for you. What would be the title of your autobiography?
I would say The One Who Laughs at Her Own Jokes the Most.
I love it. That's great.
I really think I'm funny. Probably most of people don't. When I say jokes at home, I'm cracking up. I'm crying tears because I think I'm so funny, and Christian just looks at me and he's like, what? Why is it weird?
What was your favorite childhood book?
The Parent Trap, the movie?
Yeah.
Okay. So it's a German author who actually did all these stories that just America adopted and changed them a little bit. So this author, Erich Kästner, he actually fought against the Nazis and his books were banned back then. So just keep that in mind. And he's one of my favorite authors, like back in the days, back in my childhood.
Do you watch most of your American movies with German subtitles or do you watch them in English?
We actually watch them in English. People here make fun of you if you do that because they were like, oh, you're so sophisticated and you can watch them in German. But I really feel like even like comedies and stuff like that, the original joke is so much funnier than the translation. So that's why we watch them in English.
Well, Sabine, how has your focus changed throughout your life from when you were a kid through your 20s and now in your 30s? What do you think?
Well, in my 20s, I wanted to have a lot of money, own a sports car. That was like one of my main goals. I feel like more important for me now is to have like good friends and a good life. And, I have a great boyfriend and I feel like that's totally enough. And I feel like my parents are healthy and I'm thankful for that. Nobody's really ill or sick. And yeah, I feel like that shifted a lot, like not being that selfish anymore.
Let's say it's 8:00 at night and you have the house to yourself and you want to put on some music and just start dancing. What song would you put on? What's your jam?
Right now, I'm so into Cry Me River from Justin Timberlake. And I feel like, man, that would have been a great song today as much as it was back then.
That's awesome. What did you make for dinner last night?
We had takeout, Korean.
Nice. Do you have a favorite food?
Yeah, Asian.
What's your favorite place you've actually eaten anywhere in the world?
It was not the best restaurant, but with like the whole location, it was the best. It was like on the beach in Barcelona, drinking sangria and having paella. And it was like the best day of my life. I was drunk at noon. The sangria was so great. I looked at the ocean. It was like very sunny and warm, and it was like the best day. I had paella, and I love paella. So best day ever.
If you could sit down for 4 hours in an old-timey pub with one person from all of human history, alive or dead, excluding your own family members or any religious prophet, who would you sit down with? What would you drink? And what's the first question you'd ask them?
See, that's a tough one for me because I've never been obsessed with people, not even with like musical artists. As when I was a kid, I never had posters on my wall from anybody. So that's a tough one. But do you know the White Rose from World War II? The resistance group. It was like they called Sophie and Hans Scholl, and they were like this resistance group. They were like medical students, and they wrote papers with like all the Holocaust stuff and like what they do to Jews, and wanted to educate people, and they lost their lives because of it. They were, they found them and they died in a really young age, and I probably would want to meet with them and ask them why did they, wanted to do that and risk their own life that much, in such a young age. That would be very interesting for me.
What would you want to drink?
Probably something with vodka.
And what would be the first question you'd actually ask them?
Why would you want to risk your life that much just to educate people? That would be my question. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
If you could travel in time, where would you go and why?
Travel to the 20s and sit with all the artists of that time and just like see what all the fuss is about, and just want to like breathe in all that the era of the 20s. That would be great. That's one of my regrets, that I don't paint anymore. I mean, I feel like I'm not a creative. Like I went to painting school, like where we just painted with all these different techniques, and it was such a good time when I was younger. But when I started my job with like the shifts and everything, I did not have time to go there every week, so I stopped doing it. And I feel like I'm not creative on my own. I need a topic that somebody tells me, okay, you have this topic, do whatever, And I feel like I'm not good at doing that by myself. So, but like, when I was like 16, 17, 18, I was so into painting, and then all these painters.
What medium, like acrylic or oil or what?
Acrylic. I loved acrylic or pastel. The chalk, pastel chalk, stuff like that. And I love Frida Kahlo and stuff like that. And I was like so inspired, and I'm just like, meh.
So inspired.
So inspired, yeah.
Well, what one quality do you admire most in human beings?
Being kind to each other. Like that people can be kind to each other, and like helping people in any way, little ways, and that people can be thankful for little things.
Are you afraid of dying?
No, not that much.
What would be your biggest disappointment if you died tomorrow, do you think?
I don't really have any. Well, I don't really have my teacher's degree yet, and didn't really fulfill my dream there. That would be probably a regret that I did not start that earlier. But other than that, I don't really have any big regrets, because everything I did led me to the thing I have now. So you have to understand, if I would have gone to college right after school, I would have never met Christian, like my fiance. And if I would have not waited for my medical school thing that was in Bavaria, we would have not ended up in Munich, and I love it here. So everything kind of, I don't know, made sense on the way, even if it was a hard time.
So you love Munich, even though people there are not as nice as they are in Erfurt?
Yeah, I feel like because, people come from all over Germany to live in Munich, so you don't really have that as much here than, when we were like a bit outside of Munich. So yeah, I love it here. And, even if like in Munich, you have like a lot of history of the Nazis, like you have a lot of, because they were like their main station was here in Munich, and a lot of how he said, like a lot of buildings are still from that time. But it's such an interesting part of history, and it's nice to that you get reminded of it every time and see. And I feel like I really want to know so much more because I see it every day. You know what I mean? And want to know more about that time, and like why he did that, and why he was so crazy in his mind, and like what made him that way. And I really watch a lot of World War II documentaries.
It's fascinating stuff. It really, I mean, when you start to break down, once you get away from the horror of it all, of any war, and you start breaking down the psychology of why these things happen and the history of how they coalesced to these events,
Yeah.
it's just insanity. I mean, it's crazy. And you hope we can learn from it and make the world better, honestly. It's my hope.
They it's the same in America. You have like history channels where they, about wars all the time. We have a history channel here that I feel like 24/7 there's something about Hitler on it. So you can learn something about that time or about Hitler at any time of the day.
Wow.
I feel like that's my favorite part because it's so there's so many facets of it, and there's never enough, his mind, that it's still such an unknown thing. And to see like documentaries about like Hitler in his private moments, and it's just so weird, and like you feel like what kind of weird person that was, and like what an awful person it was, and what made him that way. And it's just so interesting.
Yeah. Love a good documentary. I'm curious, are you religious?
No, I'm not. I'm a Protestant, so I got we call it confirmation here. I don't know what's it called in English. So I had all that, but I'm not. I feel the whole construct of thinking that God exists and what people do with that and what world religion does to us, just awful.
Well, let's pretend for a second that heaven does exist and God thinks you're funny enough to actually be admitted. What would you want him to say to you the moment that you guys meet?
That he shows me a clip from somewhere in my life and says, that was a good one, like that I made a good joke. That would be cool.
That's awesome. Of all the superpowers, which one would you choose first?
Probably that, people would say like being invisible or like reading people's mind. I would say that, when people talk about a topic, you instantly know everything about that topic. Like you don't, not at one time you know everything, but just like if you need it, the facts just come to you and you can talk about everything every time. That would be cool.
That would be cool.
Yeah.
If you could tell your younger self anything, you could suddenly be in front of 12-year-old Sabina. What would you say to her?
Don't be so shy. Take some risk. Try new things. And just don't get stressed out so much. And don't get so angry.
I'm just curious, what do you think, after having been a paramedic for so long and growing up in your part of the world, what do you think is the meaning of life?
That's an easy question. The meaning of just living. I mean, why do we have to have a meaning in life, Like, why does everything have to have a meaning? Why don't we just live and just make the best out of it?
Okay.
You want more?
No, don't. I don't feel
like there's like a real, like...
You understand, there is no right answer to this question. No. This is just a matter of perspective.
I know. What do you feel like? What do you think of a meaning in life? What's your meaning in life?
It's multifaceted. I think it's first and foremost to love.
Oh, okay.
Then I think it's to enjoy all the aspects we can, like food, sex, laughter, friendship, hopefully combinations therein, and just enjoy this beautiful world while also taking care of it for the next generation.
That's a good answer.
Thank you. Well, Sabina, the last thing we do on the show is my little game called 299 Philosophical and Life Questions with Moonbird. I have a list of 299 philosophical and life questions. You get to pick two numbers, and I'm going to read you those two questions, and hopefully you'll answer. What are your two numbers?
Okay, I'm going with 7.
Okay, and
let's do 212.
7 and 212. Number 7. What's something you're not good at?
Riding a bike.
Really?
Well, Kristen always says I'm good at it, but I feel like I'm not very good at riding a bike. I can ride a bike, but no, I have to extend my answer a bit. I feel like I can do a bit, but not very good. You know what I mean?
No.
There's nothing in my life I'm really, really good at. I don't really have that one thing I'm really good at. I can do a lot of things a little bit. So that is kind of annoying that I don't really are good at anything typical.
So there's nothing that you actually suck at? Like you're not very good at making a souffle, or you're not very good at basketball, or?
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, I learn really quick, but I'm never like going to be a superstar in anything. So that kind of sucks.
Well, I think you're a superstar at being a human being.
Oh, yeah.
And I will say you're a superstar at being a friend. So there you go.
Thank you. But, well, I don't know about that. I mean, I think I can do that a little bit too.
But do you think, is that a Sabine trait, or is that a German trait that you like don't want to be really, really great at something?
Oh, that's a me trait. That's a Sabine trait for sure. I feel like a lot of people think they're really good at something. I just don't think that I am good at something, like at something very typical. I can't say that word, whatever.
Well, maybe you just haven't found the thing yet. Maybe you're going to be the world's greatest teacher.
See, my problem is most of the times I'm just too shy to try new things, or like, I was a dancer for 15 years, but I'm too afraid to get into it now. That's my biggest problem, that I probably would be good at something, but I feel like when you're in your 30s and you want to start with something new, for example, I want to try a new sport, but there are no spaces here that would support that kind of thing, because everything is just like made for children, children.
Well, come to America. You can do whatever you want here.
Yeah, it's not the same here. So that's sad for me, because I really would like to try something new, or like feel like I want to find my passion or anything, but I feel like I'm just too scared to do anything because I don't want to make a fool of myself.
Well, I would encourage you to do whatever you want, regardless of the fear, because life is too short.
Yeah, the thing is, my fiance says the same thing, and he does that. He just tries stuff, and if he's not good at it, he stops, and if he's good at it, he just keeps on going.
Yeah, exactly.
But it's just not in my mind. It's just when people tell me that, I'm thinking, yeah, blah blah, I'll just keep talking. But I can't, I mean, it's nice that people tell me that, but if you can't do it, you can't do it. I feel like I'm just, that is my biggest flaw, I guess, that I'm always scared to disappoint people and like making a fool out of myself and, getting laughed at, and that people don't like me. That's like a hard one.
I would find it hard to imagine that people wouldn't like you. And I'm being serious. Like, you're very personable. You're very funny. Like,
oh, just ask some people I work with.
Well, you know what? Fuck them.
No, that's okay. I mean, I don't like everybody. I don't like a lot of people, but
nobody likes everybody. I got tons of people I can't stand.
But I have that thing that I think that people just talk about me behind my back, and then it just gets into my mind, and then I see things they're not even there, and just let's not get into that.
I was going to say, this is going from a podcast into a therapy session. It's wonderful.
No, I'm just saying that's probably the thing. I'm not good at trying new things,
Okay, so all of that just to say that's wonderful. Number 212. How would your best friend describe you in 5 words?
Caring, good listener. I'm saying that from my point, funny.
Okay, that's 3.
Drunk. And I want to say something like that you can have a good time with me, but I don't know how to put that in one word.
Fun?
Fun, yeah. Fun, I would say.
Well, it was certainly fun having you on the show.
Well, thanks for inviting me. It was a fun talk, and hope to see you soon.
Yes, we need to get you guys over to America. Please give your families our best, and thanks again.
Bye.
Friends and listeners, if you're interested in becoming an EMT or a paramedic, there are tons of courses available worldwide. Just check Google for one near you, or go to your local fire department or hospital and ask them for a referral. If you'd like more information about the Holocaust and World War II, there are some links in the show notes for you to explore. And while you're on the web, if it's not too much trouble for you to head over to patreon.com/Moonbird, that's Patreon.com/Moonbird. We'd love to have you show your support for the show. Every shekel helps us keep making great episodes like this one. And if you want more Moonbird in your life than that, and hey, who wouldn't? Head on over to memoriesofamoonbird.com or visit me on social media at Memories of a Moonbird. Auf Wiedersehen and stay safe.